We'll call the OnPoint Board of Directors to order for Tuesday, October 15th. We will now rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. We have 3 excused absences tonight, and everybody else seems to be here. So I'm going to go ahead and call the roll. Kimberly Bartlett.
Here.
Ben Brookhouse. Here. Mark DeYoung. Here. I am here. Jane Farrell.
Here.
Beth Johnson.
Here.
Alice Kelsey.
Here.
Dr. Robert Clay.
Here.
And Pastor Craig Van Beek. Here. With that, we now have the provision for public comment. They're on agenda items only. It is 5-minute limit per speaker. And that is to have the public to look at and make comment on any agenda item that they'd like to see the board consider in more in depth. Is there anyone in the room that would like to address the board? Second call? Hearing none. Megan, is there anyone online?
Is there anyone online that would like to address the board?
Thank you very much. At this time, you get the copy delivered.
Yeah. Ooh.
Submit your order.
Where's mine?
We don't play favorites here.
You're not trying to sway the emotions.
He put the water into the
Going on with the
machine.
program committee. With that, I'll close the provision for public comment. We do have a second period of public comment later on the agenda. We have Mr. Whitty, would you like to make an introduction at this time?
I can make one introduction of someone you have not met yet, just trying to think who you were thinking of, but with us tonight is Bonnie Sexton. Bonnie is the new HR director. I wanted to just give her a moment to, if you want to just say just a couple of words about yourself. We've done that for most people when they're brand new. Give you the same opportunity.
Do I need to stand?
Well, it's usually customary, right?
Okay, well, it's a pleasure meeting you all. I know I've met some of you through executive committee and just shortly before finance committee, but I'm Bonnie Sexton, the new HR director, and have worked in HR for about 25 years. And a little over 12 years in the mental health and behavioral health field. Worked previously as HR director of HR community relations director for MRC Industries in Kalamazoo. And then also as a consultant was interim HR director for residential opportunity in Kalamazoo as well. So I've had a lot of exposure to behavioral health, and I'm really excited to be here at OnPoint. Fantastic team and leadership team, and education-wise, graduated from Liberty University in Virginia and went to graduate school at Mercy College, now Mercy University in New York. So I'm thankful to be here, and it's a pleasure meeting all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure having you on staff now, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. The next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or corrections or that anyone would like to add to the agenda before approval of the agenda? Hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Move to approve the agenda.
Do I hear support?
Support. It's a chorus.
If you don't mind, Kimberly, I'm going to give that one to Jane. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
The agenda is now approved. Consent agenda is the next. Is there any, parts of the consent agenda that anyone would like to remove for further, in-depth discussion? Hearing none. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So move,
That was by
Robin.
Rhonda. Do I hear support? Support by Glenn. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is the program committee report. Chairman Kelsey.
Yes, we had, in essence, 3 presentations tonight. The first one was, on our, supported employment services, and we got to meet, the new head of that, Charlie Wilkinson. And, he shared with us some of the, new directions that he is focusing on. One is to kind of expand some of the, employers and community members that normally is beyond what they would normally look for, and including like chambers of commerce and libraries. And he also gave us some drafts of some new marketing material that he has put together. Then we had a presentation by Nat of the quality improvement plan, and gave us a summary of what they are going to be working on for next year. And then we also, the members of the program committee got a chance to meet Diane Bennett via Zoom. And she gave us a report on the compliance plan that they are seeking approval for. That took the whole time that we normally have set aside, so.
Okay. Is there any questions for Alice at this time? Yes.
I have a curiosity more than a question. I'm looking at the marketing material. I'd like to say that's a very nice job, well done. Numbers are displayed well. So who's ever doing that? They did a nice job.
That's perfect.
Yeah, then we just go Charlie.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I'm hoping the chairperson of the committee would be presenting motions at this time too, that.
I was waiting
Okay.
to ask, but I will,
Well,
I'm
it's just,
sure I,
I was making sure there wasn't any questions first, because I have 2 motions here too.
There you go, thank you.
So, is there any further questions for the chair of the program committee? Hearing none. Alice, we proceed with the motions that we need to take care of this evening.
yes. The program committee recommends that the OnPoint board approve the quality assurance and performance improvement plan for fiscal year 2025. I'd like to make that as a motion.
Okay, I will take that as a motion. Do I hear support for that motion?
Support.
Kimberly's got it this time.
That's right.
Is there any further discussion on this quality assurance and performance improvement plan? Everyone has a copy of it in your packet. Any questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none. I will take a roll call vote. Ms. Bartnick,
Yes.
Glenn Brookhouse,
Yes.
Mark DeYoung. Yes. Gail Dugan says yes. Jane Farrell,
Yes.
Beth Johnson,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Dr. Robert Clay,
Yes.
Pastor Van Beek.
Yes.
That motion carries will you carry on with your second motion?
Yes, the program committee would also like to recommend that the OnPoint board approve the corporate compliance policy effective October 1st of this year for fiscal year 2025.
Is that, I'm taking that as motion. Do I hear support for that? Support by Jane. Is there any further discussion or comment? I believe at this time, there is a signature page on that. Will we need to do that in May or at this time, Mr. Whitty?
Let's clarify that with Diane if we can. She's on the line with us
Okay.
today, our compliance officer.
Thank you.
I'm going to recharacterize that question if it's all right.
Yeah.
Diane, when do you wish to have board members complete their attestation or their signature on the plan?
I didn't know if there was an annual, a month that you do annual paperwork for the board. If there is, we could do it then. If not, we could do it now once, everybody's had a chance to review the plan. And if you have any questions, feel free to call me before you're comfortable signing.
Ordinarily, we engage in an annual board corporate compliance training in May. And then we generally, at the end of the year, ask folks to, like I said, it'd be in February, no, I'm sorry. In March, we distribute the annual conflict of interest forms, which may be different than the compliance. That's why I was going to ask for your expertise on that one.
Yeah, well, let's do it now then, because I hate to wait that long till
Okay.
next March or May.
This is located as attachment A, OnPoint personnel compliance attestation, page number 50 in your packet.
And so do you want the board to sign on the same one as the personnel?
Yes.
Okay,
So this one, Mark?
Page 50, yes, that one.
yes. Now, a technical question, since this is already a part of the packet.
Yeah.
Do you want a signature on this and then Megan take a copy of it?
Oh, we print out some clean
Yeah.
pages from that.
Yeah.
We'll have that before you leave tonight.
Before you leave, make sure that you have signed that and it's a clean copy. And we need to take a vote to make sure that this has been approved by the board. So this is what you are going to be looking at, is this compliance plan. Is there any further discussion? None, I will take a roll call vote. Pastor Van Beek,
Yes.
Dr. Robin Clay,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Beth Johnson,
Yes.
Jane Farrell,
Yes.
Gail Dugan says yes. Mark DeYoung. Yes. Then Brookhouse. Yes. And Kimberly Barton.
Yes.
That motion carries.
What do we do with these?
She's gonna make clean copies for us,
Okay.
and so you can keep your packet all together.
Oh.
Yeah. You're a little bit ahead of us, Kimberly, but that's okay. With that, is there anything further, Mrs. Kelsey?
No.
Thank you very much for your report this evening. We'll go on to item 8, A and B. Chairman Johnson of the Finance Committee.
Thank you. Starting on page 5. Just going over some of the things operationally that we've spent money on, but new computer upgrades have been happening, rolling out each month, and employees are real happy with the speed. Phones are being upgraded and they're working on making sure those are very secure as, information with HIPAA and so forth. And that's probably the two big ones on what's been happening purchase wise. if we can skip over 7 and 8 for a minute and go right to the monthly reports. On page 11, overall, Andre has said in the committee that August was real smooth and it's still going well. So, on page 11, in the far right, column, the Medicaid subtotal, the $1.967 million, will be going back to the LRE. And if you go all the way down to the general fund of 309,000, that will be going back to the state. And the nice, I have a smiley face next to it. My happy number is the CCBHC subtotal, which is just shy of 1.6 million. So still relatively stable numbers there. Over on page 12, your balance sheet for August of 2024 in the right-hand column, the very first number, 5.5 million, lots of cash and cash equivalents, but let's not get excited because they have to go back, the 1.9 goes to the LRE, there's 2,000, 3,000 in there that has to be paid back out, goes back to the LRE in the state. And then that's pretty much it on there. Done on the unrestricted net position, the second to the last number is the 1.1 million. That is because of the great volume with the CCBHC. So, any questions on the balance sheet? Okay. Page 13.
Wait a minute.
Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
What's the usual amount that we end up returning to the LRE and the state?
Historically, what would, I don't know.
Is it similar?
Yes, although last year, if you recall, we tried to spend a lot of that down, so we started in less, but usually, yeah, it's around that 800,
Thank you.
800,000 somewhere in there that we returned back to the LRE.
A bit higher. So. Any other questions? Oh,
Just if I can augment that too, remember our strategy as a board was that the LRE's revenues were artificially high because of the pandemic
Yes,
and the fact that people with Medicaid did not get redetermined during that process. And so we received an abnormally high amount of Medicaid revenue. And the strategy we were following was to say, if we spent all the way up to the maximum, what we'd end up doing is have to follow the trail back down
got it.
after disenrollments occurred. So surpluses are really our effect that we tried to spend, I won't say level, but we didn't try to use every last dime we got, because otherwise we might find ourselves in a situation where we're having to, reduce staffing because the money wasn't there long term. So that's kind of our stable strategy.
okay. Thank you. Okay. On to page 13, which is the revenue net position. If you go to the far right side, that's the percentage of the year. And this is through August. Up on top, it's 91.6%. So anything around 90 to 95, we're right on mark with our budget. If you notice, we're at 100.9 on the CCBHC. That's because we projected a certain volume and we went well beyond it. So we're high in the volume of visits and so forth. The exceptionally low one, I would say, is at 57% grants and earned contracts. That's low because we haven't expensed out any of those grant dollars yet, and so we can't show it as revenue until we expense it. That's because some of the grants are used. Help me out here. Let me get it. The grants have to have certain personnel to perform activities that are within the grant, and we don't have them yet.
Uh-huh.
So, sweat that one. Okay.
Doing good.
All right, the big one that the finance committee really was kind of proud of, and hats off to Andre and Nikki here, is that our total operating revenue is at 86%. And our total operating expenses is at 83%. So our revenues and our expenses are pretty
Yeah.
closely matching up, and that's great budgeting and controlling. So kudos to the department. The last big happy number, once again, is the change in net position is 1.9, almost $2 million. So that's a very strong change in that position. So any questions on that page? Good. So, back to page 7. Now we have to pay the bills. So. Page 7. I recommend to the OnPoint board to approve the September 2024 disbursements totaling $4,340,621.43.
I take that as a motion.
Support.
Since we are paying the bills, we'll have to take a roll call. Is there any further discussion on payment of the bills? Hearing none. Jane Farrell,
Yes.
Beth Johnson,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Robin Clay,
Yes.
Pastor Van Beek,
Yes.
Kimberly Bartnick,
Yes.
Glenn Brookhouse,
Yes.
Mark DeYoung,
Yes.
and I say yes. That motion carries.
Okay, one more on page 8. We have a provider that needs to go on the list of provided contracts. So I move that the OnPoint board approve the following list of provider contracts for fiscal year 2025 for a mother's touch.
And that's a SUD provider for recovery housing. That is that, and that's for the electronic record and the folks online. Is there any further questions or comments on the addition to the provider contract? Hearing none, entertain a support for that motion.
Support.
Jane's got it. Roll call vote. Kimberly Bartnick,
Yes.
Ben Brookhouse,
Yes.
Mark DeYoung,
Yes.
Gail Dugan says yes. Jane Farrell,
Yes.
Beth Johnson,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Robin Clay,
Yes.
Pastor Ben Beek.
Yes.
That motion carries. Is there anything else to report on, Mrs. Johnson?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much for your report this evening. Going on to number 9, there was no meeting tonight. Correct. That'll be coming up in December. And we're on to LRE updates. Who do we have online, Stephanie or Mary? Mary? You were sort of hiding behind Andre.
Yeah, element of surprise. But
Anyway,
I'll start off by
please.
saying, thank you all. You are such a pleasant board to work with. And when I went through the finances as I sat there, it gave me a huge surprise. Yeah, I totally know that you guys are super, aware of your finances and very, in touch with that. Would also like to say congratulations on the CCBHC and having extra, daily visits. It has really boosted, the portion that is yours to keep, which is super exciting for all of you. So congratulations on that. I'm just gonna cover a couple topics tonight with you guys, so you kind of know some things that are happening regionally as well as at the state level. The PHP is, negotiating a contract with the state for fiscal year 25. We didn't agree with all of the language. We didn't feel as though, there were 7 of us that didn't feel as though as PHPs, we could sign on the dotted line and feel that it was appropriate. So through legal, we had revised language, which we put in the contract. And then we signed that and we overnighted it to the state. We preempted that with an email to the state, letting them know that we were not in agreement with these 3 areas. And the 3 areas have to do with a lawsuit that is still actively being litigated. It holds the PHP to some things that might not ever shake out in a lawsuit. So it will also do some pretty significant damage financially to the system. So we're not comfortable with that. One of them has to do with CCBHC, which would put all CCBHCs, I think, in a very compromised position. So we're uncomfortable with that language. And then the third topic is about our internal service fund. It is the ISF. It is the reserves that are held at the PIHP or the regional entity. The state has a magical number that we don't know where it came from. It's 7.5% of your overall revenue you should be able to keep in reserves. We had an actuarial analysis done by an actuarial firm, not Milliman, who sets the rates. It's actually another firm. That says for our region, because of the swings and the high risk that we carry with overspending in the history of the LRE, we should probably have approximately 15%. So when we took that to the state, part of the contract says you will have an analysis of how much you need, but then it says over here, you're only going to get 7.5%. So why are we paying for this analysis? So we're kind of saying to the state, why doesn't the contract read, you should be funding it to the level, if you choose to the level that your actuarial analysis says you should have. So those are the 3 areas that we've pushed back on. I'll be honest, I don't think the department is very pleased right now with 7 of 10. 3 did sign. One of them signed right now with an interim CEO, and I just don't think that he had the ability to probably speak to the topic at the level or has the trust of the board to sway them to not sign. The state says they'll come to the table and they want us to sign as is, but they'll come to the table and continue to negotiate with us, which we felt like we were negotiating them from a leg down, and we chose to not do that. So as of this morning, we were given notice that we had a meeting with the state on Friday to continue to negotiate with them to try to get to a point that we have a signed contract. So we as PIHPs have signed it, the department has not. So that's where we're at with our fiscal year 25 contract. And I'm sure that you had some updates. I think a year ago when I was here, I told you guys we were trying to negotiate a new contract with the CMHs from a PIHP. We have a contract from 2021. It's very old. We're on 11 amendments. We have been at this for over a year now. We're continuing to work on it. I think we have it down to 3 areas that I think we don't necessarily, I don't know if it's, I would say we don't have agreement, but I think there needs to be clarification. We have had our legal involved. The CMHs have had some of their legal involved. Some of the CMHs are willing to sign. We have a couple that are not. So this month, I would encourage all of you that have a little spare time. The LRE work session is going to be, we will be bringing our legal in to talk to the board about the 3 topics that the LRE is proposing, that the contract remain as the new revised one, and that the board recommended move forward. The number 1 area that is at the table is risk. Who is at risk? Is it the LRE that holds all the risk, or does that risk come up to the CMH level? I think it's quite apparent to me that those of you that are really working to stay within your budget understand that you hold some form of risk, or you wouldn't care about a budget. So I think there's just some philosophical differences that we need to get ironed out. I honestly believe that is probably the challenge of this region, since its inception. So I think we have to come to an agreement of, do you bear any risk or do you not? And if you don't bear risk, then what strings does the LRE have to put in place to assist those individuals that are challenged to stay within budget? I think this is at the heart of the challenges in this region, and they've not went away, and so we have to address them as a board. So I would encourage you, if you would like to sit in during the work session, I do have a document that has been shared with your executive director regarding CMHA, the Board Association's stance on the risk. And so that is aligned with what the LRE leadership believes, as well as LRE legal. So that will be the direction we will be moving to present to the board to make some decisions for us. So then from that point, hopefully we'll be able to kick out a boilerplate contract that we can all come to an agreement on. Fiscal year 24, I think you guys might have heard, we were gonna get some more funds, maybe. They were gonna loop back around and maybe give us a little bit more. We were hearing it was 1%. With all of the disenrollments, the 1% came down to, it's either 2.3 or $2.6 million for the entire region. So not enough to close the financial gap by any means that we are experiencing in 24. So the LRE will be dipping into the risk reserve corridor to the tune of about $16 million at present projection, with no plan presently to refund that, which is very concerning to me as the CEO at Lakeshore. That is one of the requirements of the contract. If you dip in, you must have a plan to replenish. That's on 24. Moving to 25, with the new rates that although the information has come out, it looks like 4 of the 5 CMHs are in the black now. We had 3 out of 5 previously, but with the rates that actually came in, pushed our 4th one into the black based on the budgets that were out. So we will be working with that 5th CMH regarding the proposed budget that was turned in that shows deficit spending, which would force the LRE to deplete the final portion of the ISM in fiscal year 25. So that's what that says to all of you who have been around a little bit. It's the same merry-go-round, we just haven't gotten off of it yet. So hopefully the board will help us with that in the upcoming month. The CEOs are working diligently to work with each other and try to hold each other accountable. And so I would just like to say, as the board and essentially the boss of Mark, I would like to say he does an excellent job, and I thoroughly appreciate him being at the table and being the voice of reason on many, many occasions. So thank you, Mark. So that's what I have for my report today. If there's anything I missed that you want to know about, I would be willing to answer, if I can.
First off, thank you very much for being here in person.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Johnson, if you'd like to have the first question,
I got a 5.
you can have one, and then we can go around for everybody else. And then we'll get back to you.
Okay, I share. Back to the fiscal 20, well, which one should I pick? I guess I'd like to start with a statement, Mary, that it is utterly, utterly frustrating. And I know you feel it too, and you're the messenger, but you're also the head of the LRE. So you were here a year ago and things haven't come together. And when's the drop dead time for this contract to be signed? I mean, because this merry-go-round can go for another 5, 10, 15, 20 years. There's no stopping it.
Yeah, Beth, I hear your frustration. I feel your frustration. Esther Van Beek and I have had many conversations, and I believe the LRE board is beginning to get more educated, as well as Alice, not to exclude Alice by any means. We've had many conversations. The LRA board is, I think, starting to make some changes. And I think that there's been a lot of tough questions that hadn't been being asked, that I can say that, OnPoint comes to the table and asks them. And it's getting momentum. I think at the end of the day, nobody wants to make that hard decision that unfortunately OnPoint's been there. They had to make crazy cuts at one time in their history. And I think everybody tries to avoid that until it is the last option. And in my opinion, we're at the last option. And so the LRE board is the one at the end of the day that has to, through the voting members of this board and the other CMH boards, say we're not going to give any more money out. That people have to come into line with the budget. They have to follow the operating agreement, which is PM.
I'll wait my turn.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to ask a question at this time of Mary?
Chair.
Yes, Alice.
I was just gonna say, you mentioned at the last meeting that you had been kind of asking around to other PHIPs about if they had already came with any ideas about how to address this kind of an issue. And I was just really curious to look at that, because I think I hate to reinvent the wheel. So if somebody, we've been saying this before, is like, this cannot be the only place that has had this kind of issue. And I'm wondering if you found any other places that have come up with something that we could piggyback on.
I will say it like this. We are the only region that has repeatedly done the same behavior.
Would you say that a little bit louder?
We are the only region that has repeatedly had this same behavior.
Okay.
Another region, Region 6, was in a very similar position as we were at the same time we were back in 18 and 19. They have not fallen into that same spending pattern. I can
They
tell
get out of
you,
They stopped spending and they make.
Well, but to me, the thing is, was that PHIP able to insist or make changes that then, you know, to me, that's the thing, we got no teeth.
that part. So I think, Alice, that a couple of things happened in the pandemic. We had money we never would have had. We would have never been able to pay the counties back. And at the end of the day, there's not a clear understanding that we were responsible to pay it back. We weren't. The code is very clear that once the LRE is bankrupt, we have no more funding in our ISF, that the county is accountable. And Mark and I were just talking about this, and that's something that we're going to work on educating and finding and making clarification to make sure that he's comfortable with that interpretation. I'm getting that from legal. I get it from the code. I hear that from the state. MDHHS has promised me a letter for 4 months now, that they're going to send me a letter about the overspending. My meeting this morning at 8:30 was canceled. The top item on the list is the letter. So I'm going to continue to request the letter. I think you all know, any of you that are county commissioners or have worked on a county board, you cannot have a budget that is not balanced. You can't start the year without a balanced budget. So for 2 years in a row, we've had a CMH turn into the PHP a non-balanced budget. But at the county level, it looks balanced because it says right on it, LRE owes us. So that goes back to the risk and the teeth and the lack of teeth. And my greatest asset regarding this matter is my executive directors at the CMH level, as well as my board. And those come from all of you. Because at the end of the day, it's not about me. I am the figurehead of the LRE, but it's all of your monies. It's your county monies. And so we might be the bank account, but at the end of the day, you formed the LRE.
Any other questions before I return to Mr. Johnson? or to Mrs. Kelsey? Beth, you have the floor again.
Going back fiscal year 25, the 7.5% for the ISF, was that the state recommendation?
The state has a requirement. It was never in the contract, the amount,
Okay,
but the state in December of 22, Mark DeYoung might be able to help me with the date, but I think it was December of 22, they tried to sneak it in the contract and tried to make us backdate it, and I didn't sign that contract because I was litigating at that point against the state. So the state has put it in the contract now that it's 7.5%. That's the cap. You cannot have any more than 7.5%.
okay.
There is a PIHP in the state of Michigan that is well above that and will not return the money to the state, which is part of this, why it's becoming a big issue, because they're funding it to the level of what the ISF analysis should be based on an actuarial firm telling them, here's how much you need to be safe.
Is there ever a chance? I know this is a ridiculous question, but we all know Network 180 is $16 million in the hole, and they're the ones that put 11 million on their budget to lie to their board. And we know that, and it's disgusting, and it's not you, I get that. But what incentive do we have to take our money that we are very fiscally responsible for and not keep our ISF right here in Allegan County?
Well, you can't legally. That's,
Well, it
That's-
sounds like other people don't do.
so I thoroughly understand what you're saying, Beth.
Mhm.
And when the state realigned the regions to be 10 PIHPs and they made this region 5 CMHs, 7 counties,
Mhm.
that was part of regionally, you pull together your resources to help each other at different times. I think it becomes very challenging. And I wouldn't want to be sitting in your seat to say, what is the incentive to stay within your budget? Because you're ethical and you're responsible. That's all I can say to you, is because you're ethical and responsible and it's the moral thing to do. It's why you have the executive director you have sitting here.
With that,
No, I've got an old.
that's all. Does anyone else have a question? Yes, Jane.
I do. So you had mentioned that one PHIP within Michigan that utilizes the analysis percentage. How are they able to do that when the state is mandated in 7.5%?
Oh, they're not. They're fighting. That's part of why they didn't sign the contract either.
Okay.
And they are prepared to go into active litigation to protect their reserves.
Okay.
So, the difference is I'm not maxed out at 7.5%. I don't believe regionally, maybe I'm wrong. I hope I am wrong one day. I don't believe I will ever get to 7.5% at the way the spending goes in this region. So it's the principle. Like, can you tell me why 7.5% is the magical number? And because they can't logically tell me, then to me, it doesn't make sense that I should be held to 7.5%. But another portion of the contract says, have an ISF analysis to tell you where you should be funded. Once I have that, then isn't that my goal of a regional entity, is to say, each year we're gonna put $2 million until we get there, or whatever the amount would be, in order to protect the region in case we were to go through some major. So I hope that answers your question.
Is there anyone else that has a question before I return to Mr. Johnson? Beth, you have the floor again.
Thank you. You mentioned the 7.5 from the state, but you had private actuary come in and they said 15%?
Yeah, they give you an amount, which the amount was double at the time, but it's what you have to understand, which is the part that makes 0 sense to me about an internal service fund. As you bring more, like, as you bring less money in, if you base it on 7.5%, then you get to keep less, right? Because there's a cap on it. So at the time that we were rolling in money, it would be like $30 million is 7.5%. But as our enrollment goes down and our revenues is less, then we have to keep less. So, but is what they said at the time is the state, I think the one year we analyzed, the state said I had $27 million in my ISF and $27 million in Medicaid savings. The actuarial said I needed 54 million.
Wow.
In my ISF. That wasn't my reserves. So if it's 7.5%, I can figure that out, just double it, it's about 15%. So it's not an exact percentage.
So what we've been paying in the last year or 2 or 3 has been 7.5%.
No,
Okay,
so,
that's what
no,
okay.
last year we did not request,
Okay.
we did not set any money aside to go into the internal service fund at all. And this year we did not budget for any money to go into the internal service fund at all.
Where's it sitting?
It's all going out to your PMPM. And then if you
So
have
there's
any
no
left,
balance in it?
if everybody was within budget, everybody
Yeah.
stayed within their PMPM, one might come in 100,000 under, maybe somebody comes in 1 million, that money then would go to the ISF. When we were rolling in cash during the pandemic, we did vote to take it off the top because we were pushing more money out than people could spend.
Right.
So we kind of said, let's not do that, let's just fund the ISF. And then if you got in trouble, of course, we would have funded you, but there was more money going out and people were still laughing money back, millions of dollars back to us anyways.
I'm a,
Mark has a question.
okay,
Well, and because of that, we were able to cover the shortfall that we were in that got us in trouble with the state in the first place.
That we ended up having enough money that when the lawsuit came through, and so there is some philosophical difference about what that lawsuit actually said. The lawsuit, at the end of the day, the judge said, because you put it in your risk management strategy plan, which was a last ditch effort that at the last minute, the CFO and I said, let's throw it in there. Like, if we have enough money, we're gonna pay it back. And here's how. The state approved that plan. The judge said, so it doesn't matter what you thought your contract read, is what mattered is you approved the plan that they were required to have. So that was how we were allowed to pay Health West, Ottawa, West Michigan, and Network 180 back the money that was overspent in 18 and 19. That opportunity will never come around again. It will never come around. First off, we would never have that kind of money.
No.
But also, I can tell you the next year that we put something like that in the risk management strategy plan, it came back and said, you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. They caught it the next time.
so I mean, currently, how much money is in our ISF bucket?
Beth, I would want to check on that to get back to you, and I'm not gonna call on Andre because that would be inappropriate. It switches because I call it reserves. I have some in Medicaid savings and some in ISF, and we move it around to whatever is best, because we can only cap out at 7.5%. So depending on how we have to use the money. So because we're at the end of the fiscal year, but we don't really cost settle till February, I don't know how much money is totally out there. So I would want to get you a number, because the state hasn't cost settled with us. So what you also need to know, they cost settled with us for 1 year where I owed them $4 million, but on the year that they owed me $4.5 million, they haven't cost settled that year. And they want to take $13.7 million from the years that I did pay back the money out to the CMHs. So when I say I don't know how much is out there, it's because I have $4 million I haven't gotten from the state. The state is saying I owe them $13.7 million, which I'm going to fight if I have to. And then, you slush that all amongst 2 different funds. But I can get you a general amount. I will make sure that I have that at the board meeting for Mark, like where we think we're at.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Is there any further questions for Mary at this time?
I got one last one.
Go ahead.
On the contract, you said there were 3 major points and you hit the first one, which was the risk.
Yeah, there's something about litigation like who pays for litigation if you guys have litigation? One is on risk, and honestly, Beth, I can't remember the third one, but it will be at the work session at the LRE.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any further questions for Mrs. Dumas? Hearing none. Thank you very much for your report
you.
and the 20 questions. And,
I would like to say, Beth always asks tell you questions, but they're not questions that I'm not asking myself in the region. So I appreciate that. I think it's important, and I think if I was sitting in your seats, I would have those same questions.
and thank you for your candor. Next on the agenda is the Chairman's Executive Committee report. We met on October 11th, last Friday. We had a compliance update from Diane Bennett as to our compliance that we just approved and our improvement plan. We met Bonnie Sexton, our new HR director, and went through some other things there. We're going to revise the job description, and we are now having a CEO instead of an executive director.
Yeah.
So you can address him either way. We also had from Mr. Whitty the update on the PIHP contract with the LRE, where we stand with our obligations. Mrs. Kelsey reported on her observations at the executive committee, and Mr. Van Beek, Pastor Van Beek is now our representative on the executive committee at the LRA. Congratulations. Thank you. We also reviewed the key board tasks, which we have taken care of this evening. And then we had a short briefing on other agency issues. It was a fairly short and functional meeting. We also need to take care of our delegates to the CMHA convention here coming up this next weekend. And the Gun Lake Tribe is looking to have some interest in opioid settlement funds. They're going to open a discussion with them. And Mr. Whitty will actively follow up with that. With that, Mr. Whitty, do you have a roster of Mr. Whitty, myself, and Mr. DeYoung as delegates to the
And Glenn,
and Glenn?
you got a choice this year.
So do you want to do this by nomination or
Are you available for the Sunday night?
I can be, yes.
Because you have three options, you need two plus me.
okay? Anyone have a opinion?
I'd like to see our executive committee members represent us. Mr. DeYoung and Mr. Dugan.
Very gracious.
Yes, that is. Mr. DeYoung, do you have any comment to that?
I'll do that.
Okay. I also look at this as a learning experience for you, Mr. Brookhouse. It helps develop your knowledge of the CMHA and what they do there. Maybe we can get him in as treasurer.
I'm a social worker. I can't.
It's the people who can.
So does someone want to give me a motion to act on?
I move that we, for the nomination of Mark DeYoung and Glenn Brookhouse to be our voting delegates. Is that what we're doing?
That's correct.
All right. For the conference, the CMHA Fall Conference.
Get one more.
Oh, and the new CEO.
Uh-huh.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a support?
Support.
Support by Dr. Clay. We'll do a roll call on this. Pastor Van Beek,
Yes.
Dr. Clay,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Beth Johnson,
Yes.
Jane Farrell,
Yes.
Gail Dugan says yes. Mark DeYoung,
Yes.
Ben Bookhouse,
Yes.
and Kimberly Burke.
Yes.
Congratulations, our new delegates. So I'll see you up there anyway, because I have to be there for the chairman's meeting. So,
Oh, we got a snack.
yes, and they have these little pen bites. Anyway, thank you very much. That motion passes. Do we, Megan will send those on to the CMHA so they can have the proper credentials. Yeah. And with that, this is another Board Works workshop catch-up month. Megan will send out an email tomorrow, with a link to the workshop page, as well as a list of individuals who need to complete workshops. This basically is what you'll see on the computer. Please, take care of that. And, send your completed evaluations to Megan via email, or give them to her at the next board meeting. Oh, so with that, is there any questions for me as to the chair or executive committee report? Hearing none, thank you very much for your attention this evening. Now, next on the agenda is the OnPoint CEO's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for jumping the gun on the program committee motions earlier. I was sure you were about ready to move on, so didn't want to have you back up. Just a quick note on that title thing. You know, when we made a few structural changes here where we had created and appointed a chief operating officer and appointed Andre the chief administrative officer, what we were trying to do was to move into a little bit more manageable structure for administration that allowed me to do what I was going to concentrate on, and the staff to have leadership on site and all that. And it didn't really occur to me at the time that kind of implied that maybe at some point we'd have to think about chief executive officer. So we talk about ourselves as a CEO group at the region. It's not been a term that hasn't been used, but I suppose it makes good sense to align that with what we've done the rest of the way administratively. I will say, I did mention it to my wife when I got home after our Friday night meeting. She was completely unimpressed, completely unimpressed. So I just want you to know, I've been told exactly that it means not what you think it means. So that helped keep you grounded. Anyway, as far as the report goes, you'll notice that this month was just a little bit shorter. I tend to go back and forth between the 8-page reports and the shorter ones, and tonight is a shorter one, so it makes good sense. We've had more activity than normal. Just an update on where we're at with the chief operating officer. That has been posted for some time. It's now closed, and we're beginning to interview. Had a candidate that we were supposed to meet this Tuesday or Monday, but they backed out, so we'll move on. The next interview happens later this week. So we're hoping that we'll have a good selection to make fairly soon. We did implement, as you heard already, about the electronic information system, EHR, electronic health record, the PCE system, and it really has gone smooth for the most part. The things we've run into have not been unexpected. We did have one glitch with the conversion of some records from the old system to the new system that were not completely well. So those are being worked on, and some workarounds. I think the feedback from PCE is that, they acknowledge that the difficulties they ran into are part of their system, that every conversion runs into problems, and that we're not to be considering it to be a failure by any means. I think it's actually been very smooth, and the things that they run into, for most organizations, we've not had the trouble with. So I still think we should consider it to be very much in the plus column. And the items that we're having trouble with, we will certainly get, attention with as we go. And no concerns about that. Still think overall, the best decision we've made in a long time. We've already talked about the fall conference, so I won't belabor that. The recovery celebration, I did put on the back page of the report, the article from the Allegan County News, in which we had hundreds of people showing up downtown for the first ever Allegan recovery, art recovery event. Very, very positive, and we've heard a lot of good things about it from not only our staff, but also the community. So thank you for those that paid attention and supported it one way or the other. And we'll be back next year on it. Mary's already talked a bit about the PXP contract, and you've already heard about the outcomes of the board's, the LRE board's actions about attendees and executive committee membership, so we'll relate to that. And then you've already heard a bit about the dollars, the issues from financial, the 1% change increase that was done for fiscal 24 and the outcome of that. Still positive, but short of what it is that we'll need to really solve the financial gap issues in our own region. So with that, I'll just say thank you for your time and attention tonight, and look forward to whatever questions you might have with me.
Does there anyone have any questions for Mr. Whitty? Thank you very much for your report this evening, Mark. Next is the next provision, the second provision for public comment. Is there anyone in the room that would like to address the board on any subject? Yes, you're recognized.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to especially get information from the, in fact, headquarters for the opportunity. And also continue to be concerned about some kind of program. I don't pretend to know all the funding, but some program that such as we once had before the pink slip era, when we had 40 plus deletions. It would be one kinder way of saying it, I suppose, like we're writing a document. But anyway, I hope you will consider something like that. Again, I don't know like finances and so on, but I think it's very important, give some alternatives. And also, I want to thank you for the opportunity again. It's good to see you, and happy Halloween.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board that's in the room? Second call. Megan, is there anyone online?
Is there anyone online that would like to address the board? No.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hamilton. With that, we will move on, post this part of the second public comment. We're on to 14, board member comments. We'll start on this side. Dr. Clay, would you like to start it off, please?
I'm glad to be back after 2 weeks with the mountains and family, so thank you.
Good to have you here. Okay.
I would just like to say thank you to Mary for being so open and candid about the issues that are continuing to be a concern at the LRE level as well as our board level. And it's very nice to have that open and candid discussion.
Glenn?
I would echo Jane's statement.
Thank you. That's for them, big. Yeah.
What?
Mrs. Johnson.
I was just gonna give a shout out again, once again, for Nikki and Andre and their great budgeting.
Yeah. Thank you. Alice?
Awesome.
Kimberly?
I have something that doesn't have to do with the board,
but my granddaughter's selling pies again. I got a few of ya. If you're interested, come see me and I would deliver them next month meeting.
Thank you very much for that opportunity. And as I always conclude the board comments, being appointed to the LRE board is a tough job. And the rest of us really need to be supportive of Pastor Benby, of Alice, and of Jim Story as they represent OnPoint on that board. They face a lot of pressure sometimes to really go and bring our opinion and our perspective and our conservative values to that board to get it so it will be a shining star in the state's eyes. So keep all these members, all three of these members in your prayers. And Mr. Whitty, as he performs his duties at the LRE level, that support that we show them here, they can go and transmit to the LRE committee, and their votes show that. So thank you very much for all of your service there. And with that, enjoy the fall colors that's starting to turn here, and keep in your prayers the ones that are taking the harvest off, and the ones that are transporting these crops and things with the waning daylight hours.
Have you harvested yours yet?
We're in the midst of doing that, but we've had several accidents here
Oh,
in
boy.
Ellicott County. A couple fatalities with that, where people weren't paying attention to what was going on. And so we need to really alert the people that we are in our private circles and the community to be careful and to be safe in their daily activity. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you very much. Support by,
Or,
all in favor, say yes.
yes.
All opposed? The motion carries. Everyone, be safe going home.